Hello and good morning. It's a really early start for me up the allotment because I have lots of jobs to do, and they include emptying the trough and refilling it with new compost before I plant all those lovely bulbs out. I also want to plant out more alliums, dig up the dahlia tubers, tidy the archway, tidy the rhubarb area and do lots of mulching, hopefully before the rain comes. So it's that time of year again when all the spring bulbs need to be planted out, and like I said in my previous video, I like to do this around the middle of November once we've had our first frost, because that will kill off any diseases that are in the soil. But my job today is to get rid of my soil, because the compost in the trough is actually 4 years old now, and I've noticed actually over the past couple of years that it's really been lacking the nutrients that the bulbs really need. So I'm going to be emptying that today and refilling it with some new compost. So the first thing to do for me will be to take the weeds off. I'm also going to save my Narcissus bulbs, which I planted in there last year, because they'll come up again and they're perfectly fine. It's just the tulips which suffered with the tulip fire. So I'll be taking them out and disposing of them. But all the spent compost will just be put in a pile on an empty space for now. And then when one of the vegetable beds is empty, I'll just spread it over there, and then I'll manure the vegetable beds as well, just to keep those nutrients in there. But yeah, the tulip trough is very much lacking nutrients. Now I've only gone for the cheap multi-purpose compost because the trough is so huge. It takes a lot of compost and I don't really have that much money, so I've just gone for the cheaper option. But what I'll be doing now and also in the spring is I'll be mulching it with some of my new double strength wool compost from Dalefoot Composts, which I will talk to you about later. But yeah, I think this is going to take me quite a long time, so I best get cracking. So that's all the tulips planted out. And what I've done this year is, because I was filling the trough up again, I just filled the trough to halfway with compost. So the tulips will be planted at about 6 inches deep. Usually I use a dibber because obviously the trough is usually full up. So I just use a dibber to make the holes and then put the bulbs in. But it's just so much easier this way because I was filling the trough up again. But yeah, the tulips are going to be planted at 6 inches deep. And then what I will do is I will layer some more compost on top, and then I will plant the narcissus at 4 inches deep, lay more compost on top, and then the ranunculus will go at the back there at 2 inches deep. And all my bulbs are roughly about 4 inches apart in spacing. It's just the tulips are 6 inches deep, narcissus 4 inches deep, ranunculus 2 inches deep. But yeah, I was so excited about these tulips. I did actually go through all the varieties which I've chosen on my previous video, but I will just quickly go through them with you now, just a little recap, because I've got my plan here. So there are 5 bulbs in each row, and there's 10 bulbs per variety. So there's 10 bulbs of Tulip Artist, 10 bulbs of Orange Princess, 10 of Purple Crystal, 10 of Evergreen, 10 Apricot Pride, and 10 Spring Green. There's also going to be 10 La Belle Epoque, but they haven't arrived in the post yet. And I was so desperate to get these ones in because we've been having such bad weather lately. I just needed to grab the chance to get these in. So what I am going to do is just place these 2 bits of slate in the trough where I want my La Belle Epoques to be planted, so I know where to plant them, and then when they come in the post I can just use a dibber to pop them into the trough. A little bit later than the rest, but hopefully they'll come very, very soon. So yeah, that's the tulips, so they end here, and then there's going to be 6 rows of narcissus, so there'll be 3 varieties. Like I said, they'll be planted at 4 inches deep, but I'm getting a little bit addicted to narcissus now, especially the more unique, different varieties. You can absolutely buy some stunners out there, and I have chosen Bella Song, which is white with a pink trumpet, Sir Winston Churchill, which is a double variety, and also Yellow Cheerfulness. I grew Cheerfulness last year, and they have multiple smaller heads on one stem, but this is the yellow variety. So yeah, they'll be going next to the tulips, and then the ranunculus at 2 inches deep at the back of the trough there. The varieties are just Aviv White and Aviv Pink, but there will be 2 rows of each, and there will be 8 in each row. But like I said, all the spacings are 4 inches apart roughly. It's just the ranunculus are 2, narcissus 4 inches, and tulip 6 inches deep. So what I'm going to do now is just lay 2 more inches of compost on top of the whole trough, put the narcissus in, and then lay another 2 inches on top and put the ranunculus in, and then lay another 2 inches on top of that, and then that will be done. I just need to get the other bag from the car somehow because my wheelbarrow is full up with soil now. But let's get these bulbs all planted. So the tulip trough is all planted up. I don't know why I call it the tulip trough, because it is tulip narcissus trough. Because what I've actually done is I misjudged the spacing on my drawing, and there was a tiny amount of room at the back where the ranunculus were going to go. So what I've done instead is I've just planted 2 more rows of narcissus in there called Sweetness, because I thought there's no point just putting 2 rows of ranunculus in there. The display isn't going to be that brilliant. So yeah, it's just half tulips now and half narcissus, and I will put the ranunculus in a tub somewhere else. But I also need to buy another bag of 125 litre compost to fill up the rest of the trough. So it takes a lot of compost. But anyway, I'm going to plant some alliums in front of the trough now, and I have already 2 bunches of free called Giganteum, and they're a really nice purple colour, but I'm completely addicted to allium, so I treated myself to 6 more bulbs, but this time they're a white variety called Mount Everest, and they grow to about 90 centimetres in height. But I'm going to put them in the middle here in 2 bunches of free, so there'll be 3 Giganteum and then 3 Mount Everest, 3 Mount Everest, and then 3 more Giganteum there. So it'll be my little allium border. So, rule of thumb with your allium bulb planting is you need to plant them at a depth which is 4 times their diameter. So the diameter of these bulbs are 2 inches, so they will be planted at 8 inches deep. And I'll also plant them roughly about 8 inches apart. So I'm going to plant them in a triangle, so the display will be really nice, and also it will match the Giganteums as well. So 3 in there. And then 3 in this hole here. Now, as with most bulbs, they love good drainage. So if you do have really hard clay soil, then I would add a layer of grit or a layer of sand at the bottom. But our soil isn't too bad here, and the Giganteums bloomed so lovely last year. So I'm very much looking forward to having some white varieties. So all that needs to be done now is to just backfill the holes, pop a label in there so I know where they are, and then get on with another job. I don't even think I have time for a tea break today. So I'm giving my archway a little bit of love this year. It's one of those areas which I tend to forget about, but it's one of the important places on the plot, because this is where I grow my Munchkin pumpkins, my climbing French beans, and my sweet peas, and they're grown in this same spot every single year. So for the past 5 years now, I've grown the same thing here without properly feeding the soil. Now, pumpkins and squashes are very, very hungry vegetables, and they need those nutrients to grow. And as you know, I've never had a good harvest of Munchkin pumpkins than I did in my first year. I think I harvested 34 Munchkin pumpkins in the first year, and then it's gone from 2 to 0 harvests, which it's really sad because they're one of my favourite things to grow. So yeah, I'm going to look after this area, and what I'm doing now is I've just completely weeded it and I have mulched it. Now I always forget to mulch, but it is quite an important thing to do. It not only adds nutrients back into the soil, but it suppresses weeds. It also can protect any of your plants from extreme temperatures, and it also encourages worms. So I'm hoping that by mulching this area I will get a really nice harvest of Munchkin pumpkins next year. But what I am using is this Lakeland Gold. Now Dalefoot Composts kindly sent me 3 bags of their compost to try, and it's a business which is quite close to my heart actually, because they use sheep's wool in their compost bags. It's just started raining now. But yeah, they use sheep's wool in their compost, and it's all 100% natural ingredients, and it all comes from their farm in the Lake District. I actually talked to them on their stall at RHS Tatton, because our stalls were quite close to each other, and I noticed they had a Herdwick wool fleece in the back of their stand, and we obviously started talking because I obviously have 13 Herdwicks now back on the farm in Wales. So yeah, I really like that they use sheep's wool, and obviously sheep's wool will release nitrogen slowly, and it will also retain water, so it's great for tubs and containers too, and especially good for hungry things like pumpkins and squashes. But yeah, it all comes from their farm on the Lake District, from their sheep's wool, but the base of the compost is bracken, potash rich bracken, and then they obviously add the sheep's wool as well to retain the water, and slow release of nitrogen. So yeah, I've got this bag of Lakeland Gold which I'm using here because it's really strong stuff. It will feed for up to 2 years, but you can also use it on your fruit trees, asparagus, flowering shrubs. I might put some on my rhubarb as well, but a bag will go a very long way, because you only need to mulch at about 2 or 3 inches of layer, so a 1 bag will go a very long way. What they also sent me was some double strength wool compost, which again is pretty self-explanatory, but it's really good for greedy veg, and it's good for tubs and containers. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to put it in my containers of herbs, because there's quite a few containers of herbs around here, just to add those bits of nutrients back into those tubs. And the other bag was bulb compost. Now the bulb compost bag is 20 litres, which definitely would not have filled up my trough. But what I am going to do with that later on, maybe in a week, is there's a container here which I have a bulb lasagna planted in, and I think I planted it a couple of years ago now, but I want to redo it with some fresh soil, so I'm going to use the Dalefoot bulb compost just to see what it's like, because I'm really excited to use this compost, really excited, and it just feels so nice. And like I said, it's peat free, it's 100% natural, and as fellow gardeners I know that you will understand and appreciate good soil. It just feels so nice. But anyway, I finished mulching that. What I might do earlier on next year, just before the spring, is give it another little bit of a layer of this mulch, just because I want it packed full of nutrients for those pumpkins. I think it's time to head in the shed and have a tea break. So I think the rain is here for the day. And I've been quite lucky, because like I said, it was meant to rain a few hours ago now, so can't really complain. But it does mean that I won't have time to tidy my rhubarb area, which isn't so much of a problem, because it was just one of those jobs to do over winter anyway. There wasn't so much of a rush to actually do it, because there wasn't anything waiting to be planted in there. It just would have been nice to have done it today, but I'm not gonna drown myself in the process, so it'll just be a job for another day. But one of the things I did want to do today was to lift my dahlia tubers. Now It was my first year growing dahlias last year, so they didn't grow that big, but I did get a few really nice blooms from them. Now they can survive a mild winter in the ground if you pop a layer of thick mulch over the top of them. They can survive, but as a precaution and to guarantee that my tubers will survive for next year, I thought I'd lift them and store them in the shed. So all I've done is carefully lifted them from the ground. I've washed them and tried to get as much dirt as possible off of the tubers. So all I'm going to do now is cut off the stem, and that's ready to store. So what I'm going to do now is just get the label, which is cafe au lait, and I'm just going to lay that on my drying rack in the shed for about a week until they completely dry off, and then I will pop them in a pot or a small container with some dry multi-purpose compost and leave them there until the spring. And I'll probably leave them in the pot until they're ready to be planted out again, just as a bit of a precaution. Yet again, I'm quite protective of my dahlias. They're a little bit new to me, so I'm not too sure what to do, so I'm just taking every precaution that I can. But yeah, I'm just going to place them in the shed for about a week, let them completely dry off, make sure the label stays with them so I know which is which. And then this one here is Fairway Spur. This was actually my favourite one this year. The blooms were like dinner plates and they were just so spectacular. So keep the label with that one, put that next to the cafe au lait, and just let them dry. And hopefully I'll have more dahlia blooms next year and more Munchkin pumpkins with my extra mulch there as well. And hopefully lots of tulips as well. So I think before I get any more wet, I'm gonna head home and have my cup of tea at home. This shed is getting really full up now, and it's only 6x4, so there's not that much space. I can just about sit in there. But yeah, it's getting really full up and hard to move around in. But yeah, the last thing I wanted to share with you all very quickly is just a little reminder that my 2019 calendars are now for sale in the shop, and there is a separate page for them on the shop, and you can find it along the menu. It's just 2019 calendar, but there are about 35 left. I've sold quite a few to America and Australia, and quite a few to the UK as well, but I just wanted to remind any of you that if you did want one, then you can head on over to the shop and buy one. But that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you didn't get too wet on your allotments this weekend either. But thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.